One of the things that we know is that babies are the best learning machines in the universe. They're really designed to learn, and both their brains and their minds are just made to be these incredible machines for learning. Learning begins literally from the time that babies are born, and there's even some evidence that there's learning inside of the womb. So when babies are born, for instance, they discriminate between the sounds of the language that they've heard and sounds of another language.
There's that duck.
Good.
They're already seeing, hearing, making sense of what's going on around them.
People would say, so when does a baby start to see? When does a baby start to hear? Or people would think about learning in preparation for school. People would say, well, the year before you start school, we should make sure that a child is oriented toward learning. Learning doesn't begin then. Learning starts in infancy.
I think that what you see when you watch a child walk into a preschool that is curious and eager to learn is a child who's had positive experiences before he even got to preschool. He's had nurturing and responsive parents. He's been in a safe environment. He's had good health and nutrition. That child comes with a set of skills and a set of interests in life, in exploring, in playing, in socially playing well with others, that a child that doesn't have those experiences doesn't come with.
我们中国啊有一句古话叫3岁看大7岁看老，而且呢父母是孩子最好的老师，所以呢一个父母的行为，他的情绪表达，他对事物的这种反应形式都会影响孩子。
If you think we don't have to do anything up to 3 years and you put them into a pre-primary school at the age of 3, I think it's too late. You've already lost the most important part of the brain development, which was to take with stimulation. So I think the home stimulation, advice to the parents for ensuring that when the child comes to the school, he's ready for school and the schools are ready for the child.
I bambini iniziano ad apprendere da subito, quando nascono, anzi iniziano ad apprendere anche prima, quando sono ancora nella pancia della mamma. Sono apprendimenti che possiamo definire informali, che avvengono attraverso processi di scoperta, di esplorazione, di pensare con le mani, quindi coniugando aspetti diversi, in una anche libertà di possibilità di espressione che sono cruciali perché possano poi avvenire gli apprendimenti formali. Come dire, un bambino che gioca bene al nido, che attua dei processi simbolici, è un bambino che poi imparerà anche a leggere e scrivere, ma non imparerà a leggere e scrivere se non ha avuto dei contesti di qualità nell'esprimere questi processi di apprendimento informali.
De verdade ou de brincadeira? De verdade? Eu vou pegar água, tá?
The children are learning a tremendous amount, but the thing that they learn about the most from early on is what's going on in the minds of the other people around them. And there's been a whole bunch of research. We started doing this back in the mid-1980s, trying to figure out what children know when and how they learn about the other people around them. Because if you think about it, if you just look at the people around you, what you actually see are these bags of skin that are stuffed into pieces of cloth with little dots at the top that move back and forth and a hole underneath that has noises coming out of it. But of course, that's crazy. That's not the way we see other people. We see people who have emotions and thoughts and want things and believe things. But it's this great philosophical puzzle. How do we ever figure out what's going on in somebody else's mind when all we can see is just this body that's moving around?
We believe emotions are very, very important for babies. And so Betty Rapicoli and I did a very interesting study that we call an emotional eavesdropping study.
Here's an 18-month-old watching.
Sì.
So the way the study worked is an adult used a stick to press a button and it made a very nice buzzing sound. And the babies love this. And we know from many studies that if you give the stick to the baby, they will immediately pick it up and want to make the buzzing sound. But in this new study, we had an adult come in, and the adult's name was Nina, and Nina watched as the first adult pressed the button with a stick, and then Nina got angry at the adult, not at the baby, but at the adult, as if that was a forbidden action in this culture.
That's aggravating. That's so annoying.
Oh, I thought it was really interesting.
Well, that's just your opinion. It's
And the
aggravating.
little 18-month-old sat by wide-eyed as one adult was getting angry at the other adult. And then we gave the baby the stick and the buzzer to buzz, and the baby picked up the stick, looked at the angry adult, looked down, looked at the angry adult, and they would not do it. And they would not do it because the person who had demonstrated that she was angry at this action was now looking at them, and the baby did not want that adult to get angry at them. You know, for many animals, the animals, you have to do reward or punishment to them directly. You have to say good or bad to the animal directly. For a human child, you do not have to do the child directly. They can observe how one human being treats another human being, and they can learn from that. And that greatly accelerates their learning about the world.
We used to think that emotion and social processing was completely separate from cognitive abilities like problem solving, mathematics, and language. So we would tend to think of these, oh, these must be in two separate parts of the brain, they must not be related to one another. The new work that we're doing in brain science and behavioral science is to show how deeply linked these two are. It's as though the social brain turns on other capacities or turns them off, depending upon the social context. So an example is we exposed monolingual American English learning babies to brand new languages. In one set of experiments, we exposed them to Mandarin Chinese, and in another one to Spanish. And we were trying to see whether or not at 9 months of age, can babies acquire the ability to hear the differences between sounds? Can they acquire sound patterns that are appropriate for words in this new language or not? And what we discovered is that in a warm, regular social context, when the foreign language speakers who were graduate students in my laboratory, when they were on the floor playing with the kids for 12 sessions, each lasting 25 minutes, the children learned so much from 9 months to 10 months. They learned so much about the sounds of Mandarin or Spanish that they were equal in their abilities to the children from the foreign countries who had been listening to that language for 10 months. And so if the sounds come in a social package, the way typical learning occurs, they learned incredibly well. When another group of babies was given the same information on the same schedule, same room, everything was the same except it came from a television set, babies learned nothing. They climbed up to the television set and they would touch it. You know, they'd look at it. You know, they seemed to be riveted to the TV. But when you tested them after their 12 sessions, they had learned nothing. The brain measures and the behavioral measures showed that they were just flat in their abilities in the foreign language. So only live social experience provided the babies and their brains the right kind of information at the right time in development.
What I think people think in general is that children are better off interacting with people around them and objects around them. So having real live people who you talk to and engage with, that's always going to be the best toy for children and the toy that they learn the most from.
Mattina la pimpa fa uno sbadiglio. Apre un occhio e guarda là. E la sveglia cosa le dice?
A question that people are often asked is what's going to be the effect on babies of all of the new devices like screens and tablets and things like that. And the answer is we don't know, and we won't know for another 20 years until the babies grow up. But I'm more optimistic than some people are about this. So I don't think it's that being in front of a TV or being in front of a screen is destructive by itself, but it's destructive if it's keeping children from doing things like engaging with real people, which is the thing that they seem to want to do the most.
Muitas vantagens vão ocorrer, muitas coisas boas ocorrem a partir do mundo virtual, mas o que a gente está tendo ali? Uma perda da observação e do contato visual e do contato direto da criança. Um bebê que senta na mesa com os seus pais com um tablet, ele não vai ver como as pessoas comem, ele não vai ver como as pessoas conversam, ele não vai ver como as pessoas têm prazer naquele momento. Então, assim, é uma perda muito importante.
As crianças estão inseridas no mundo, né, o mundo da internet, um mundo que não vai voltar atrás mais, né? Então é isso. Então, e qual é o papel dos pais? Uma vez que o mundo está dado de uma certa forma, é justamente funcionar, ajudar a criança a lidar com este mundo. Então aí entram as regras, sim, né? Quanto de TV, quanto disso, quando é que vai ter celular, quando não vai ter. Cabe aos pais fazer esse recorte, sim.
Eles podem assistir 30 minutos, então o resto do tempo eu quero que eles sejam criança, eu quero que eles brinquem, eu quero que eles fiquem na rua, entendeu? Isso pra mim é muito importante. Eu quero dar isso pra eles porque é isso que eu tive, sabe?
Children in their early years are meant to bond with nature, to have the wonder and the magic of the three-dimensional world imprinted in their hearts and minds. No computer screen will give you a gentle summer breeze. It's not possible. No scent of spring will come from the screen. No touch that really moves you will come from artificial representations of the world. Learning in the real world is primary to a positive formative experience.
Eccomi qua, sono arrivato, ci sto.
Sono arrivati solo un porcellino e vanno porcellino blu, bianco e rosso. Partono alla ricerca della loro nuova casa.
E i bambini apprendono, imparano e co-costruiscono il sapere. Quindi insieme a te, insieme ai loro compagni, insieme agli altri bambini, e lo fanno se ti vedono coinvolto, se ti vedono divertirti con loro, se ti vedono interessata a quello che fanno e se vedono che questo interesse passa non solo dal bambino all'adulto, ma soprattutto dai bambini ai bambini, tra di loro, nella loro relazione. È questo che per noi è molto importante, valorizzare le relazioni tra i bambini, fare in modo che siano loro i primi promotori di un apprendimento.
One of the things that we know about babies and young children is that they play, and we sort of take it for granted that that's what babies and young children are doing. But actually, we think that when babies and young children are playing, what they're really doing is doing experiments on the world, the same way that a scientist does experiments to figure out what's going on in the world.
O bebê, desde que nasce, ele brinca. E o primeiro grande brinquedo é o próprio corpo. Como no início ele descobre a vida através dos sentidos, essa brincadeira se dá se descobrindo, descobrindo o outro e depois em função dos objetos que você coloca em volta para essa criança.
Mas esse impulso lúdico já acontece, às vezes até na barriga, e a gente nem sabe disso, né?
As crianças se desenvolvem jogando. As crianças se desenvolvem brincando. O jogo é o modo delas viverem o mundo, delas entrarem em contato com o mundo, delas compreenderem o mundo, delas criarem o mundo. Ele possibilita e ele é o próprio processo de desenvolvimento, sabe? O cérebro gosta de brincadeira.
It's their work. It's what they're supposed to be doing, right? I mean, it's all the important things are happening when they're playing. They're engaged. They're participating in the world. They're learning. I definitely try and take the attitude as a parent of like minimal intervention. My job is to kind of feed you and clothe you and keep you safe and kind of tend to your needs in the early beginning with the idea that the least I interfere with you is probably the best.
A brincadeira é o espaço dela entrar no mundo pelas próprias descobertas. Primeiro pela sensação, pelo gesto, pelaquilo que ela vai viver através do próprio corpo. Então ela vai aprendendo as sensações no brincar.
Muitas vezes os pais acham que eles deveriam fazer do ambiente do bebê um espaço meio escolinha, né? Cheio de recursos, cheio de objetos pedagógicos e lúdicos. As crianças, a graça da criança brincar é justamente subverter os objetos e transformá-los em brinquedos, né? Então, que uma caneta com uma régua vire um aviãozinho é muito mais interessante para o desenvolvimento da criança do que o aviãozinho pronto com controle remoto, né? Nada contra aviãozinhos prontos com controle remoto. Mas na hora que ela subverte o objeto em brinquedo, ela cria. No que ela cria, ela aprende, ela transforma, ela inventa. Algo de novo acontece.
Ay, me duele. ¿Me va a dar el remedio? Necesito el remedio porque me duele mucho. Aquí está. ¿Ese es el remedio? No, yo quiero en una tacita el remedio. Aquí está. Ahí está. Oh. Buenísimo. Se siente mejor. Me siento mejor, sí. Gracias, doctor. Chocolate 5.
Hoje tem estudos maravilhosos a respeito do papel que o brincar tem na socialização, do papel que o brincar tem em conhecer os próprios limites e ultrapassar, não é certo, os próprios limites. Ainda o papel que tem a brincadeira na capacidade criativa, no processo, não é certo, criativo de uma criança, mesmo, não é certo, de um bebê.
I think that from a creative perspective, one of the most important things to give kids is nothing. Is to allow them to invent things with whatever happens to be around. And I think to just encourage them to invent worlds.
Children are walking around without an agenda. They're walking around without a kind of set of, I must do this and then I must do the next thing. So they're naturally wanting to play, and learning is play. When they discover, gee, this block fits into this slot in a particular way. You know, when they put things together that have never been put together before, or they're in the kitchen playing with the pots and pans, they're in the woods building a playhouse, or on the beach building things in the sand, they're just inventing. They're the world's original innovators.
Creative play is all about problem solving. It's all about finding new ways to do something, of thinking out of the box, of being able to put together your puzzle pieces or your dolls or whatever articles you have in clear and imaginative ways that are not the traditional ways to use it. And so creative play has so much to do, not just with what children engage with, but the process of learning, the process of being innovative, the process of learning how to take a few risks, sometimes failing, then learning from that and succeeding. I've read an interesting statistic once that said that once children start to enter primary school, the creativity and the creative solutions they find plummets by almost 50% or more. That means prior to that, they're free thinkers and they're trying out innovative ideas. And then they get into a system that starts telling them how to think and how to react.
This is my major role as a dad, is as a play platform.
Like that? How's that? We can do it in two, just like that.
Adesso che c'è l'autunno e tutti i colori cambiano, invece di, per esempio, voler dire al bambino com'è, come mai, che colori cambiano, eccetera, eccetera, provare a chiedere, per esempio, ai bambini anche piccolissimi, anche piccoli, solo che sappiano un pochino parlare, per esempio, come mai le foglie cadono, perché cambia il colore. Quello che gli adulti dovrebbero capire, insegnanti e genitori, è quanto, certo, è importante l'informazione, ma soprattutto è importante il processo che il bambino instaura. Essere sin da piccoli all'interno di questi processi dove ti chiedi il perché, fai delle ipotesi e poi casomai le discuti con gli altri bambini che hanno anche idee diverse dalla tua o anche con l'adulto. Credo che sia proprio un modo di apprendere, di costruire la conoscenza straordinario, dove non c'è mai solo una risposta, ce ne sono tante. E soprattutto imparo a pensare con la mia testa, con i miei sentimenti e non ricevere sempre la informazione esatta dall'adulto. Cioè quanto è importante il processo della indagine, come si impari, ci si alleni a essere ancora di più, a essere curiosi, a indagare il mondo, a guardare il mondo interrogandolo.
Come i bambini imparano? Imparano scoprendo delle relazioni che ci sono fra le cose. Relazioni di storia, relazioni di forma, relazioni di funzioni. E noi diciamo che dentro alle relazioni, allo scoprire queste relazioni, al costruirle, ci stanno anche dei significati etici, dei significati estetici. Avere cura delle relazioni, scoprire le buone, belle relazioni che ci sono fra le cose, a volte è scoprire la bellezza che lega le cose. I bambini e gli insegnanti, io dico, e i genitori dentro la scuola devono trovare dei contesti belli, non perché decorati, leziosi, ma perché c'è attenzione alla cura fra le parti. E vi faccio un esempio. Un bambino piccolo può mangiare un frullato di frutta, al nido come a casa. Allora, gli si può dare il frullato sano e beve e lo mangia, la salute, il suo corpo è a posto, oppure si può far vedere come quel frullato di mela nasce da una mela che è tutta tonda, tutta liscia, e però se la tagli dentro ha i semini, quindi ha una storia di vita. Allora cosa sto offrendo a mio figlio se sono una mamma o ai miei bambini se sono un insegnante? Delle relazioni e delle storie, e gli sto offrendo bellezza anche.
Mangiate, dovete dirmi che sapore ha se mangiate. Mangiate. Provate. È buono?
Cioè io vedo l'educazione un pochino così, l'educazione che è poi quella dei genitori e quella degli insegnanti e quella anche della gente che può offrire ai bambini ma può offrirsi anche a se stessi. Non la banalità, la volgarità, il lasciar perdere, ma avere cura delle relazioni.
Osservare i bimbi e fare questi dialoghi con loro diventa straordinaria la quotidianità, l'atto quotidiano, l'atto semplice. La pioggia può diventare una cosa interessantissima, la luce che cambia, cioè vivere con i bambini, stare con loro, è una specie di riscoperta proprio. Cioè l'adulto deve anche lui continuare a incantarsi di queste cose. Credo che sia uno gli aspetti che un insegnante, un adulto, anche a livello della famiglia, ma ancora nella scuola è proprio il compito di un insegnante, è la costruzione soprattutto di contesti interessanti, dove ci siano dei materiali, degli elementi, delle possibilità che l'adulto in parte prevede, in parte no, perché i bimbi, per fortuna, ci sorprendono e vanno sempre da un'altra parte rispetto a quello che noi ci aspettiamo. Perciò è importante la costruzione di questi contesti che io definisco contesti intelligenti e solidali.
L'ambiente è contesto di apprendimento per adulti e bambini e questo ambiente continua a essere coprogettato da bambini e adulti ogni giorno. In questo ambiente i bambini si possono riconoscere. Questo ambiente è ricco di opere, del fare anche dei bambini e i bambini si sentono protagonisti dell'ambiente in cui vivono.
Allora, molti bambini vivono in appartamenti anche molto piccoli. Come facciamo a creare un buon ambiente per i bambini? Ma l'ambiente prima di tutto è nella mente delle persone. Puoi avere anche non tantissime cose, non tantissimo spazio, ma che valore dai a quelle cose, a quegli spazi, coi bambini, a quell'ambiente?
Piscina. Mergulha. Eu vou mergulhar. Traga o meu cabelo.
Ficou sequinho, limpinho e cheiroso.
Noi, con le persone, coi bambini prima di tutto, costruiamo insieme dei significati che troviamo nella nostra vita, nella nostra cultura, nei nostri desideri, nelle nostre etiche, e questo è quello che scambiamo e possiamo scambiare coi bambini. Quindi anche poche cose però possono diventare estremamente significanti per i bambini e per gli adulti assieme.
这个环境对成就孩子是非常重要的，尤其是在0到3岁，只要心理胚胎期的时候，它既然是一个胚胎，我们希望这个胚胎期的时候，孩子接受的所有的信号都是温暖的、积极的、充满爱的，非常舒服的，不能受到伤害的这样一个环境。如果是准备好这样一个环境的情况下，对他的胚胎的成长就是非常有利的。孩子的学习，他不是像成人学习一样。 他对环境的接受和环境之间的互动，造就了他自己的内心和自己的大脑。
Lo sviluppo della dimensione corporea, spirituale, non è separata dalla dimensione dello sviluppo cognitivo, sono tutte strettamente in relazione. Quindi non c'è mai una dimensione di apprendimento e di costruzione della conoscenza solo cognitiva. L'aspetto cognitivo è sempre legato a una conoscenza che avviene con le mani, con il corpo, con la sensorialità, con l'emotività, che sono tutte dimensioni del conoscere.
Perché i linguaggi al di là della parola sono importanti perché il bambino apprende soprattutto attraverso l'azione, il fare.
Quello è uguale 1, ecco, 2, ecco. Ecco. E 5 e 6.
Perciò il fatto di avere dalla creta alla pittura, alla grafica, una serie di altri materiali che una formazione come la mia, una formazione artistica, porta dentro, è chiaro che dà ai bambini la possibilità a tutti i bambini, in modo più largo, non solo a quelli che sanno parlare bene, per esempio, ma anche agli altri bambini, la possibilità di comunicare a se stessi e agli altri attraverso il fare, il costruire. Perciò è dare la possibilità dei bambini di comunicare.
Questo concetto dei 100 linguaggi nasce sempre nel riconoscere al bambino di esprimersi e di comunicare attraverso diverse modalità di espressione e di comunicazione, poiché noi riteniamo che la dimensione estetica, il modo di conoscere, di ricercare il bello e l'armonia è una dotazione biologica che appartiene al bambino e all'essere umano.
Crediamo che il bello chiami il bello, chiami gesti di bellezza, che la cura chiami gesti di cura. E questo credo che sia un bellissimo esercizio di cittadinanza, un bellissimo allenamento alla costruzione di un uomo che affronterà la vita, il proprio mondo, cercando bellezza e offrendo bellezza.
The whole journey started in 2000 when I got an opportunity to go and visit Kibera. But now when I came and saw what was happening, it kind of touched my heart and more or less transformed my life. I was very furious with our government because I assumed that the government should be able to take care of its citizens and not let them live the way they were living. I could not separate myself from what I saw. I looked at my life and I asked myself, where was the line drawn for me that I was not on that side? I looked at my children and I said, what would I do if I was in the same situation? I am busy raising up my children, giving them the best, but in future they will not be able to enjoy it. If we have another group of children who are just there existing, not knowing what will happen tomorrow, waiting. So I imagine that it will affect me whether I like it or not. So that is when I decided to resign. I'm a teacher by profession, so I went and tendered my resignation. I was teaching in a private school, and I packed my bags, and I came to help. The president said all children who are the age of going to school should go to school. So we got all these kids, some of them were 10 years, 9 years, had never stepped into a classroom. But because the president had said and education was free, they came. But it was very difficult for us to work with them because our curriculum requires a child who has gone to kindergarten. So it was kind of Greek for them. And that is when I discovered that is why they go to the streets. Because at some point, everything just comes tumbling down. That is now when we set up Little Rock in 2003, October. On the first day, we had 12 children. The second day, we had 22. The third day, we were 35. When I was setting up Little Rock, I told myself I'll give these children the best. What my children get in the private school, they have learning materials, they have toys for playing, and learning is fun for them. So when we set up Little Rock, that is what I put in first.
Poverty denies children a lot of their rights. There are a lot of children who don't go to school. We have out-of-school children. And if you do your research and look at the background, you'll find the family cannot even afford to put a meal on the table for that particular child. So the parent will be wondering, do I put food on the table for this child? Or do I pay, or do I buy school uniform for this child to go to school?
One day we walked into school and there was this young boy who was crying. So we thought, as parents, the first thing is that maybe the child is coming up with a cold. So we gave him Calpol and we thought he was going to be quiet. And he kept on crying. So as mothers, we took him to the office and we were like, so what happened yesterday night at home, so that we could calm him. And he said, okay, when I reached home, my mother told me to sleep. Oh, you didn't eat? No. What about the other day? He said, no, we didn't eat. So that is when we discovered that they slept twice without eating. So we made for him a black tea and bought for him donut. And within 20 minutes, he was running everywhere. So that is when we now brought in the component of nutrition in our school. So we started making for them mid-morning a snack and lunch. And when we did that, kind of everybody became alive. There is something we can do. The gaps are quite big between the poorest of the poorest, the middle class and the upper class. It is there. We cannot shut our eyes on it, but there's something we can do. And that is why I decided to go and give my services, because I was looking at it. If I teach them, the kids will be able to kind of channel their parts. Because when you look at this other side of life, the middle class and the upper class, I start planning for my baby. Immediately they're born, I know what school they will attend, what I want them to, where I want them to be. But you see, for these other kids, there's nothing. The parents have given up. It's a hopeless situation. And they kind of throw in their towel and they say, it's God's. The parents might not be having the monies and all the resources which they need, but if they are able to concentrate on their education, they will be able to come out of that vicious circle of poverty.
We used to think we had to provide a free public education when children reach 5, but really we have to provide those supports for children before they reach the schoolhouse door, for them to have equal opportunity among all children. One of the concerns in countries around the world is the growing inequality, the growing difference between those families that can provide preschool for their children, can provide time and attention to their children because of their family situations, and the growing inequality between those families that can't access quality care, that don't have access to good maternal health and child health in those early years. We have to pay attention to these issues for all children, not just for some children.
If you do not take your child to school, if the society does not take a child to school, if the government does not ensure a child has an education, that's a violation. There must be policies in place that are saying early childhood education is compulsory. And government has to work towards realizing that. However, government can never do everything alone. Civil society, religious organizations need to come in on board and just complement what government is doing, and especially in the low-income areas like in the slums.
Wow!
Development, is a right of a child. Education and development go together, and it's one of the pillars of the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child.